One day, it's Education Day in America. America is filled with a lot of paradox. Kids do not have school on Education Day. People do not work on Labor Day. And this is before the era of the great distractors of our generation, the iPhone, the iPad, the iMac, and all the IIIs of our lives. And here, little Yossi doesn't have school, so daddy has to take him to work Monday morning, New York City. And Yossi says to Tati, I'm bored. You're bored? Go play with your cars in the conference room, not here. 15 minutes later, Yossi comes back. Daddy, I'm finished playing with my cars. It's 9:15. Hello. Go draw something. 15 minutes later, he comes back, and again, I'm bored. Oh boy. 9:30. What am I going to do today? I'm not going to accomplish anything. So the father thinks to himself, he's opening the newspaper, because that's what important people do on a Monday morning, and he sees a map of the world. So he decides to tell Yossi, you know what, I have an idea for you. And he takes his cutter and cuts the whole map of the world into 50 pieces. Yossi, go in the conference room, there's a glass table. Where the glass table is, I want you to put the world together. He figures he's going to have some peace and calm for the next 2 hours. Lo and behold, Yossi comes back. Daddy, I'm done. 20 minutes later, I put the world together. He says, what do you mean, Yossi? You barely know how to read. You're 6 years old. What are you talking about? Come and see. And indeed, Alaska, Canada, the US, half a wall, Mexico. And, how did you do it? How did you put the world together? You're only 6 years old. So Yossi answers, Daddy, I'm going to tell you the truth. On the other side of the newspaper, on the other side of the page, there was a picture of a man. Once I put the man together, the whole world came together. We live in some very troubling times. Every single one of us is a little nervous. If you listen to the news, you see what's happening, and you don't know what's happening. The more you know, the less you know where we're heading. Even the most recent news is very, very disturbing. Where to put my heart, what to do, how to look at situations. There is a system called Neuro-Linguistic Programming, NLP. And NLP, one of the great tools of this strategy in psychology, in coaching, is that in order to be able to master a situation, you have to become yourself a master of yourself. A master of reframing situations. I was intrigued. When I first learned about it, I said to myself, obviously, everything is in the Torah. So where can I find this in Torah? And I discovered that one of the greatest masters of the Talmud, dear Rabbi Akiva, is actually the originator, the founder of reframing and neurolinguistics programming. He operated his whole life as a master in reframing situations. In this day and age, with all the stress that we have, we cannot try to fix the world. We need to be able to fix ourselves, put ourselves together. There is a verse which I quote again and again, which is the verse that we read in the Shema in the 3rd chapter. You should not stray after your hearts and after your eyes. Now, the second Lubavitcher Rebbe asks a question. He says, why would it say the heart before the eyes? Shouldn't it say the eyes and then the heart? As we all know, we Floridians are all on a diet. A permanent diet that will start tomorrow. So, how do you break your diet? I don't know how you break it. I will tell you how I break it. Who wants to point fingers? Whoever, the Baal Shem Tov teaches us that when you point a finger at somebody, you have 3 fingers pointing at yourself. So I'd rather be sincere and honest. The way I break my diet is very simple. I'm a rabbi. When there's a bris, there's food. When there's a bar mitzvah, there's food. When there's a wedding, there's food. Even when people pass away, there's food. It's pretty pathetic. So I first see what I like. Usually it's a spicy tuna tempura piece of sushi. Most of you don't know what that is, and let's keep it at this. And at this moment, I see, and I take a piece. I first see and then I desire. But that's not what the Torah teaches us. The Torah teaches us that first you should not stray after your hearts, and then do not stray after your eyes. Why an opposite order? Even the Torah says that the eye sees, the heart desires, and then we just follow. The body follows along. The answer to this, says the Mittler Rebbe, a brilliant answer. A person only perceives with his eyes what he desires in his heart. I repeat, a person only perceives in his eyes, with his eyes, what he desires in his heart. Which means that you have a whole generation where 95.99% of the people are influenced by media, and that's what they see. Then you have the person that is ready to make a change in their life. And he's going to start connecting his mind to a higher, deeper reality, which is more than what meets the eye. That person will become a master reframer. In order to reframe a situation, you first have to be a master of yourself. In order to put the world together, you have to first know exactly who you are, where you are, and most importantly, what do you have to do now? In the now. Live in the present tense. Rabbi Akiva, a very wealthy man, the right-hand man of a man by the name of Kalba Savua. Kalba Savua, why was he called Kalba Savua? The satiated dog. What type of a name is that for somebody? Well, they say about him that he had such wealth that whoever came to his house, he always had an excess of everything. So much so that even for the dogs, a dog which would come and eat from the rubbish, from the leftovers, would come out completely satiated. So they called him Kalba Savua because of his great wealth. He had an employee by the name of Akiva, the son of Yosef. Akiva was not exactly a religious, observant man. Not only was not so observant, to say the least, he hated religious Jews, especially rabbis. He couldn't stand them. And if he would see a rabbi, he would want to give him and to bite him, the Talmud says, like a donkey bites, in a way that he could never heal of this bite. But being successful as the right-hand man of Kalba Savua, there's a young lady, the daughter of Kalba Savua, that saw some potential in this man. And could say they fell in love. I never understood this expression, to fall in love. I guess you only understand it once you get married. Anyway, so what happens? That will be another topic in itself, where reframing cannot help you. So what happened? Rachel, the daughter, I'm not discouraging you for getting married. So Rachel fell in love with Akiva, and they decided they're going to get married, to the dismay of her father, who disowned her completely. He said, "No way, you're marrying this ignorant, insignificant person. Not over my dead body. I'm disowning you." She was ready to forego the inheritance, forego the wealth, forego the fame, in order to get married to the man of her life. She saw in Akiva some potential. She understood that this man, if he used his qualities for Torah, he could become somebody great. And therefore, she encouraged him. She encouraged him to study. So here we have Rabbi Akiva, a 40-year-old man that never studied one word of Torah, finding himself in first or second grade with little boys, Aleph, Bet, Vet, Gimel, Dalet, Hey. Of course, things were just not penetrating his head. He wanted to give up, till one day God showed him a sign. He was walking and he saw a stone. And he saw the stone had a hole, piercing gold through the stone. And he wondered, how do you make a hole through a stone? It's such a beautiful hole, a smooth hole. It was a little droplets falling in the same spot, and over time were able to do what great streams of water are not able to do. He said, if a drop of water which is consistent is able to pierce a stone, my heart and my mind are not worse than this stone. Let me try. And he was consistent. You see, the secret is consistency. It's not the great things you're going to do, it's the small steps that you're going to repeat over and over again. That is the first step in reframing a situation. What is reframing? I have something which is great, humongous. It's overwhelming. Why is it overwhelming? Many times that thing is just so small, but your camera, your lens is so hyper focused on it, you think it's the whole picture. But once you adjust your lens, you see that this is just a dot of the greater picture. That's what they do in reframing in NLP. Somebody that has a phobia, they make him focus first of all on this phobia, and then they show him how it's really a small detail. Sometimes in life, we have situations like this. We want to get very angry, very, very upset. I remember one day reading about Rabbi Abraham Twersky, the great psychiatrist and coach, rabbi, a marvelous man. I really advise everybody to buy and read his books. And he said how for his son's bar mitzvah, they forgot the gefilte fish at home and they couldn't carry on Shabbat. So at the moment, it felt like a disaster. But after the fact, it really wasn't that important. They were able to make the best of this moment. It's a drop at a time. It's not overwhelming. It's overwhelming. Situations are overwhelming. People can be overwhelming. If you take the whole picture and you start adding up all the pieces and you make out of this a mountain, take things one step at a time. When I was 20 years old, I was studying in yeshiva in Manchester. In Manchester, England, I would say was my best years of yeshiva. It was raining all day. There was absolutely no temptations whatsoever. The best thing you could do is go to the kosher store and have food. That would be the greatest distraction. So here I am in yeshiva, and I took upon myself a special resolution for my birthday. That resolution will have changed my life forever. I wrote a letter to the Lubavitcher Rabbi at the time. The Rabbi in New York received then a medal for being the individual American that gets the most personal mail, more than the President of the United States of America. What was my chance when the Grand Rebbe, getting 400 to 700 pieces of mail daily, we have videos, and having only 4 secretaries, and looking at all these letters, what was my chance? A little 20-year-old writing about my resolution for my birthday to get an answer. Well, guess what? Within 10 days, the Rebbe had personally sent me a letter to encourage me for my resolution. What was my resolution? In the yeshiva where I studied in Manchester, there were 4 periods of study, one before prayer, one after prayer, one in the afternoon, and one in the evening. I wrote that not only would I be on time with my book open, ready to study for each one of these periods, but for the first 10 minutes, I would not talk to anybody. I would be in a state of complete focus for 10 minutes. You see, at the time I wasn't diagnosed, but I believe I had what they called then the Spielkis. The Spielkis over time evolved and became something like ADD, ADHD. So I always brag of being the one that doesn't have 3 letters after his name, but 4 letters. I'm not a PhD. You know what I am. But I've been sitting the whole time, so I got over the Spielkis. And here we go. I got a letter of encouragement. And I realized that this is the key. This is the key to all my problems. I can't study for 2.5 hours. I can't pray for 45 minutes. I can't hold a conversation with someone without being distracted. But maybe for 10 minutes I can do it. And that's how slowly but surely I built myself 10 minutes at a time. Using the methodology of Rabbi Akiva, a drop at a time that's consistent will eventually pierce the stone. It will pierce any type of obstacle. If you really want it, you will actually make it. And that's how Rabbi Akiva was able to grow. Rabbi Akiva, being a poor man, as we said before, lived with his wife, and one day, laying on his bed made of straw, he made what's called a tayara, a crown, a Jerusalem of gold, but he didn't have gold, so he made it out of straw. And he put it on his wife's head, and he said, one day, I will give you Yerushalayim shel zahav. I will give you a Jerusalem of gold. But now that's what I can offer you. At that moment, Elijah, the prophet Eliyahu Hanavi, was sent from heaven to test Rabbi Akiva. He knocks at the door, says, how can I help you? He says, my wife is about to give birth, but we don't even have a bed. Is it possible maybe you have some straw? He said, of course. And he gave his bed. He gave his straw in order for that woman to give birth. And how did he look at the situation? He wasn't looking at the fact that now he doesn't have a bed. He only has 1 instead of 2. He said to his wife, look, there's somebody that has less than us. Let's thank God for what we have. You see, it all starts with appreciation. There's a prayer in the morning blessings that we say every morning, which seems a wondrous prayer. And everybody looked and said, Modeani, Modeani, yes, thank you, God, for giving me back my soul. No, it's another one. That one I can understand. But there's a prayer where we say, God, blessed are you, God, master of the universe, for giving the power to the rooster to distinguish between day and night. What? What does a rooster have to do with me? So one day I find myself in a moshav, in a small village in Israel, by one of my students in Or HaGanuz, Musaf Sufa, just next to it. And my student studies till the wee hours of the night, so he dragged me with him, and it was very late. I was still jet lagged. And I fell asleep in one of these deep sleeps. You know, after a big travel, you're in a deep sleep, nobody can move you. And suddenly, at 4 o'clock in the morning, because that's the time he gets up to pray with the sunrise, what we call the nets. And I hear an alarm clock. I'm just like, what's happening? What's happening? Who is this Meshuggah? Who is this crazy man that puts such an aggressive alarm clock? It wasn't an alarm clock. He had roosters in his backyard. Don't forget, we're in a village in Israel in the north. What does it mean that God, thank you, blessed are you for giving that distinction, that power to distinguish between day and night? Because we have to learn from the rooster. You see, the rooster is there the whole night. And as the night gets thicker and more difficult, at that moment, it's a shame it wasn't the rooster. It would fit in perfectly in the lecture. Please adjust your alarm clock next time, or your ringer to a rooster. So what happens? The rooster, just before sunrise, it's pitch dark, it gets even darker. And just at the moment that we see a little 5% of light, the rooster is just beside himself. Cuckoo, celebration time! So come on! Celebrate. The rooster is there to be able to celebrate the drop of water, the drop of light in a moment of total darkness. You know who else had that extraordinary power? If you remember in these last parashiot, these last portions of the Torah, we read about somebody that I'm in awe of. Each time we come to the Torah, in the Torah, to speak about Yosef HaTzadik, the most successful story, right? Imagine a young man, 17 years old, lost his mother at 9 years old. His brothers hate him. He's about to go to a place, Egypt, right? To a place where it could be just like Khan Yunis, Gaza, or southern Lebanon, or Iran. He doesn't know where he's going. So the Torah tells us, when he got sold, because he's such a tzaddik, he's such a righteous man, God made it that the ones who bought him weren't people that sell tar, stuff that stinks and smells very hard. He made him go down to Egypt with people that sell perfume. Now, let me ask you, who cares? Imagine somebody's going to jail, or he's going to one of these horrible places, right? And we say, we're going to do something special for you. Before you go to jail, we're going to take you in $1.5 million Rolls Royce coupe. Do I care? I'm going to a living hell, and you're telling me how I'm going? Why does the Torah have to tell us this? Very simple. It's to tell us the frame of mind of Yosef. Yosef is not concentrating on the 95% horrible part of the story. He's saying, look, I'm smelling an odor of God. There's a mission here. There's something, there's a purpose. And when he goes down to Egypt and he ends up in jail, over there he finds his purpose as well. And when he finds two anti-Semites, the butler and the baker, which have bad dreams and they have a face which is sad. Why are you sad? He understands, I have a mission. And as a result, what happens? One of them is going to say to Pharaoh, I know somebody that can interpret dreams. Imagine if Yosef did not feel that he had a mission. But how did he do it? How did he overcome the temptation of his boss's wife when he was the most handsome man, right? And she wanted to seduce him. How did he resist? He would have gone to any psychologist. What's your situation? I lost my mother at 9. And your brothers? Oh, they hate me. And what else? I'm the only Jew here. Okay. Tell me more. I've been sold to Egypt as okay. Your father thinks you're dead. Dysfunctional family, traumas. Go for it. What are you doing? Are you out of your mind? But he realized my action has a consequence in the world. That's what it means when he saw the face of his father through the window. The Zohar, Kabbalah teaches us that at that moment he saw his father's face through the window. It reminded him of the face of Adam, the first man. He said, Adam too, the first man, made a little sin and the whole world suffered the consequences. It's not because I'm alone that my actions don't mean something. That little drop, that little light, that little turn away can have great consequences. That's one explanation. But then there's another explanation I love even more. It's the explanation of the word. What word is used in the Torah? At the moment that he refuses to fall in sin with Mrs. Potiphera. Vayema'en. He refused. But just a few verses before that, we see that expression is used again. Before that, when the brothers come to Jacob and say, we're so sorry. Get over it, Daddy. Joseph is dead. Vayima'en le'itnachem. He refused to give up on his son. That refusal to give up on his son gave the power to his son to refuse to give up on himself. Everything you do matters. Your good actions, as small as they are, have an impact which could be world-changing. It could change the whole history. But first, you have to realize that you have a mission. Every single one of us has a mission. We have gifts, we have missions. It's the way we fill our mind with our mission. It's the way we attach ourselves step by step to our mission that will actually get us there. 20 years ago, wherever I go, I don't leave home without it. Yes, you guessed it. I don't leave home without my tefillin.
Without your what?
My tefillin.
No. You need to speak up a little.
No problem. I will.
Thank you.
I take my tefillin. I try to take my tefillin anywhere I am. Why? Because when I was a kid, I always wanted to be a rapper. I used to have curly hair, so I figured rapping is a cool thing. But eventually I decided that it's better to rap tefillin than to rap music. So I do pot, LSD, and CBD. Pot, P-O-T, put on tefillin. LSD, let's start davening. CBD, Chabad. So when people see me, they say, hi, Rabbi. I always wonder how they know that I'm high on life. So here I am with my tefillin. And I see the Jacob high by the elevator in a building, a business office. Hi, are you Jewish? He says, yes. Okay. Did you put on tefillin? He says, no. Oh, look, I happen to have my tefillin. So we put on tefillin together. We became friends, 20-year-old young man. And I go up to his office, and one day I ask the question, what do you do for a living, Jacob? I'm an international trader. What? What's that? Well, you know, when you have a country that has a surplus of bananas and another country that doesn't and is going bananas, I make the match and I get the commission. Wow. And it must be big quantities. Yes. The guy is making millions of dollars 20 years ago at 20 years old. Next question. Where are you born? Miami. Where did you grow up? Miami. Where did you study? Miami. I don't believe you. I know Miami for a long time, and I'm telling you right now, it's impossible. Most Miami boys are Miami Vice. They go and enjoy life. They're going out to clubs. They're having fun. How do you become such a successful young man? And he told me the following story I'll never forget. I repeat it to every bar mitzvah boy and everywhere I can. I was 14 years old. How old are you? 14. I was 14 years old, he tells me. And somebody right next door moved. A 60-year-old man. And he had these vintage cars. I would come back from school, and here I would see him polish the wheels, polish the front, wax this and wax that. I would sit down and just my eyes would pop out looking at these beautiful vintage cars. And I said to him, one day I'm going to have a car like this. And he answered, really? And how are you going to do that? Well, I'm going to be rich. And how are you going to do that? I'll have money. And how are you going to do that? You have a plan? A plan? What is that? And for the next 6 months, this man, every day when I would come back from school, would teach me for 15 minutes how to make a business plan. By 20, you want to be here, there's certain things you're going to have to do. As small as it is, a small action repeated enough can get you very, very far. And you're going to have to say no to certain things. So while his friends didn't have a plan, life had a plan for them. And they wasted their time and didn't even start looking at what they're going to do when they're 20. And he was already there, so he can enjoy life truly in the future. Once you discover your mission, you understand what your talent is. It's no time to waste on what people will think. It's time to do. If you have a talent in writing, if you have a story, start writing it tonight. 2 minutes, 5 minutes a day. Take the time to express what's in your soul. You have experiences. Yes, but it's not important. Who am I? Well, if you were nobody, you would not be here. So if you're here, it means that you're somebody. And it doesn't matter what it is. I have a friend of mine who I just celebrated my 53rd birthday, and my friend and we have a birthday one after the other. And for each birthday, he writes quotes, different quotes, which are life-changing quotes that he thought about throughout this year. And he makes like 52 quotes for these 52 years. Write quotes. Today, God made it that every single one of us is an influencer. Whether you want it or not, you have what to contribute to the world. But it starts with a small effort. Repeat it again and again and again. And if you miss a day, start again tomorrow. But have the appreciation for the small things. And this is what's going to make you be able to reframe a situation. I'll tell you on a very personal basis, I was the most disorganized person in the world. How do I know? My wife told me. And I believed her. My parents told me. Everybody told me. I even told myself. Today, I'm the most organized person you can ever think. And how did it start? It started just with making that 10-minute effort. It's the little changes you make in life. The moment you're going to make that decision of being quiet for another minute instead of having to say what shouldn't be coming out of your mouth, or putting back something in its place right now instead of pushing it to tomorrow, or taking the time to do something for the next 5 or 10 minutes using this extraordinary app you all have in your phone called timer, putting a timer for 10 minutes, and cook inside yourself and see what comes out. And in a year and a half, 2 years, 3 years, I turned around and boom, everything was in place. 2 shuls, a yeshiva, a whole center for kids, a mikveh that's being built right now, and all these things. Wow. I didn't do anything. You see, great things are made of very small, reachable things. Rabbi Akiva understood this. And that's how Rabbi Akiva became the greatest sage of the Talmud. He started at 40. He died at 120. Lived 60 years before the destruction of the temple and 60 years after. He saw the pre-Holocaust and the after the Holocaust of the Jewish people. He saw the glory of Am Yisrael and their downfall. But what made him strong? One day he was walking with the sages, and the Romans, which had conquered Jerusalem and destroyed the temple, were celebrating. The rabbis were crying, and he had a smile. Why are you smiling? Why are you crying? I'm crying because, look, they're going against God, and look at their reward. That's why I'm smiling. Because imagine if somebody goes against God, if that's his reward, imagine what our reward is. And when one day he was walking by the temple, and they were crying, and he was smiling. Why are you smiling, Akiva? Why are you crying? Well, the Holy of Holies, the Kodesh HaKodashim, the holiest place in the temple where the high priest is the only one that can be there on the holiest day, the day of Yom Kippur. There's a fox going out of that holy place. How could you not cry? He says, that's exactly why I'm smiling. What do you mean you're smiling? For what? The prophecy says that the third temple is going to be built once the 2 first temples will be destroyed. I do not see this as destruction. I see this as a step towards a new eternal building. Sometimes there are situations which just leave us in shock. October 7th, we're still in shock. And if they want, what they want to do happens, releasing 3,000 time bombs, that would be even a greater shock. But I want to tell you, there's never been, they made a survey in Israel, there's never been so many Jews which are more united and more observant, putting on tefillin, proud of their Judaism in Israel like never before. We need to pray. We need to really focus on the positive and ask God to help. Darkness can be transformed in light, depending really where you put your focus. One perceives with his eyes only what he fills his heart with. So one day, the Talmud of Chagigat tells us a story of 4 rabbis. One of them is Rabbi Akiva, Elisha ben Abuya, ben Zoma, and ben Azai. The 4 rabbis went into a transcendental state, a godly transcendental state, nothing to do with Hetiyam. And they reach very, very high levels, and they're able to see certain dimensions of godliness that usually man cannot reach. One comes back, still speaking the language of above. He lost it. Another one cannot handle what he saw. He dies. A third one becomes a heretic. He abandons the Torah. The only one who is able to come b'shalom with peace and come back with peace is Rabbi Akiva. Why? Because you know what the motto of Rabbi Akiva was? The motto of Rabbi Akiva is Ve'ahavta lereacha kamocha ze klal gadol b'Torah. Love your fellow as yourself. This is the great rule of the Torah. Meaning, it's very nice to want and to have great spiritual aspirations. You need to be grounded. How do I know my spiritual aspirations are great? When I'm able to respect another and to love another, even though they don't look like me, they don't speak like me, they don't have the same social standing, etc. That was Rabbi Akiva. Then you are b'shalom. You're not jealous of the other because you know what your worth is. And like the Lubavitcher Rebbe once said, everyone has to know in details what their potential is. Why? Not in order to have ego, but in order to know how much to demand from yourself. Each one of us has talents. Some with their hands, some with their speech. You have no idea, if you have grandchildren, the effect of a word you say to a grandchild can have. The effect of a smile. 1996. I'm a rabbi at the shul of Bell Harbor, a little south from here. And a lady comes up to me, Rabbi, thank you. I look at her and say, I'm sorry, I know we all look the same, you know, the white, it's not me. Thank you for what? Rabbi, you saved my life. Ma'am, now I am certain you have the wrong address, you have the wrong person. And she tells me, no, it's you. And she tells me the following story. I had lost my husband 6 months ago. My son does not speak to me for the last 2 years. I only have one son. I was walking on the main avenue, Collins Avenue, on Shabbat. And suddenly dark thoughts came into my mind. And I said, nobody needs me in this world. Who needs me? And the nature of dark thoughts is that they get darker and heavier. And she said, I'm going to throw myself in front of the next car. And just at that moment, she lifted her eyes and she said, I saw you. And you smiled at me and you said, Shabbat Shalom. How are you? And suddenly all my thoughts went away. Sometimes you don't know that little action can have such a ripple effect. It can be a life-changing thing. So never minimize, never think that your small thing, your small comment to your grandchild, to your child, the positive thing you're going to say will not have an everlasting effect. I met a man that had a fortune of $400 million at the time, alav shalom. 80-year-old man. And he had a house on the ocean in Golden Beach. He told me, Rabbi, and I saw him, he's not religious at all. He has a picture of a man with a white beard. It was his grandfather. And he told me, Rabbi, my grandfather told me, stay out of trouble. This had an effect on me my whole life. There were gangs, and they always wanted to get him. He grew up during the Great Recession, but that word stuck with him. So you don't know the effect you can have. But whatever effect you have, make it positive, make it real. Rabbi Akiva understood that if you're able to look at a situation and understand that this is a step towards something great, even the smallest thing, the most reachable thing, is very important. Is of the magnitude of everything is tremendous. Every small thing. Rabbi Akiva, his wife sent him to yeshiva, the dream of every husband. Well, not exactly. She sent him to yeshiva for 12 years. When he came back, he overheard a conversation between her and the neighbor. Your husband abandoned you to go to yeshiva to study Torah. 12 years already. He overheard the conversation, and she said, well, if he went to another 12 years, I would be very happy. He didn't even say hello. He made a U-turn, went back for 12 years. When he came back with 24,000 students and 1 million followers on Instagram. What happened? He finally finds himself surrounded by these students. And Mrs. Akiva is looking to go through. He says, please push it away. Everything that you have and I have is hers. Belongs to her. Rabbi Akiva will eventually lose in a plague all of his 24,000 students that we mourn between Passover and Shavuot. You would think there's no greater thing than being a teacher. The relationship between a student and a teacher and a student is something very, very, very special. Losing 24,000 students is a disaster. He could have gone into a depression. What did he do? He took action. He said, let me start again. And he started with the 5 most illustrious students of the Talmud, and he built a whole new generation. This is Rabbi Akiva. In every given situation, he knows how to overcome. I would like to share with you a story. This story will conclude and give you a practical tool in order to reframe situations. Rabbi Akiva had discussions with a general of the Roman army by the name of Turnus Rufus. Turnus Rufus was an evil Roman general. But he would always lose the arguments with Rabbi Akiva. So what happened? His wife once said to him, you know, Rabbi Akiva is a man. I'm a beautiful woman. I'm a Mrs. Rome, right? I'm Miss Rome, for sure, right? If he doesn't have roaming, I'll show him what roaming is all about, right? Remember roaming? No, you don't remember. So, on the phone. So he said, I'm going to seduce him. Once I seduce him, I will make mincemeat out of him. God's power, which is upon him, will leave him. That's how evil she was. She went to see Rabbi Akiva. Gucci, Mucci, Pucci, puts a perfume you can smell a mile away, and all the jewelry. And Rabbi Akiva is studying, and suddenly he sees this beautiful woman. What is his reaction? I'm having a challenge that any man would have. He spits on the floor, starts laughing, and then is crying. She's completely turned off. What a turn off. Why did you do that? He says, look, I can explain you 2 things. The third, I can't. Why did you spit? Because I realized that you and I come from the same putrid drop. Why did you laugh? I can't tell you. Why did you cry? Because I realized that your beauty eventually will go and be eaten by the worms and you're going to be buried. What did Rabbi Akiva exactly do? This is the 3 steps to reframe any situation. Why do we get excited about situations? Why do we go into this drama? Oh, I can't believe this is happening to me. Because there's layers which speak to the superficial part of who we are. Rabbi Akiva decided to take away the layers. Why am I getting enthused by this beauty? What is it really? Is it this? Is it that? And slowly but surely he took off all the layers and realized at the end of the day, what really looks very attractive to me and very shocking to me and very difficult to me, I lost my job or this happened or that happened. Is it that terrible? Why is it terrible? Is it my ego? And slowly but surely till he went to the core essence of what it is. What are you? You're nothing more than what I am. Once you overcome a challenge, what happens? What was a challenge a minute ago now becomes an acquired power, becomes your partner in life to overcome challenges. Rabbi Akiva saw in prophecy that this woman would be so impressed by him that she would convert after he lost his wife. She would convert and actually become his wife. And that's what happened. And why did he laugh? Because at the end of the day, even after you overcame a challenge, as you grow, the challenges grow with you. So the secret of reframing every situation in life is to, first of all, calm down. Realize that the world which is around you starts with your perception. You put yourself together, the situation will transform itself. Number 2, focus on the small action you can do. Your small action has big consequences, and your positive outlook can reveal a tremendous good that you never knew was there. Number 3, don't get excited don't get emotionally attached to situations. Shlomo HaMelech, King Solomon, had a ring with 3 letters. Gimel Zayin Yud, Gam Ze Yavor, this too will pass. Whenever things were bad, he would look at his ring. But the wisdom of King Solomon was that when things were good, he would look at his ring. I'm not determined by situations. I'm determined by my mission. You are determined by what your mission is. If a challenge presents itself, it's time to embrace it. Once you embrace it, you will step up to the plate and become your greater self. And the third thing is to realize that even though you passed one test, it's okay. Even if another test comes, this is another invitation for you to grow,